Well, looks like yesterday was a pretty big day for Warframe. Why? Because Tennocon 2021 actually happened and we got a whole lot that was there, let me tell you. Now, I know some of you might be newcomers and you're probably wondering the very important question. What even is Tennocon? Well, to put it simply, Tennocon is much like E3 or Comic-Con, except it's actually hosted by Digital Extremes, the developers behind Warframe. That is, well, basically about Warframe, and it's much like any other convention. Basically things like art panels by the devs, a few Q&As by the developers, and a few many other things. Of course, because of the global pandemic, the last two Tennocons have had to be completely digital. But hopefully by next year, everything will be calmed down enough to where there will be in-person conventions again for this. Now, before actually getting into this, I should probably say that a lot of this, much like a previous video I did, will be completely unscripted and unstructured, so I might stumble about in a few places here and there, so if I do sound like I'm doing that, that's the reason why. I'm not reading off a script or anything, I'm just kind of giving my unfiltered reactions and just unfiltered thoughts on this. So hopefully that actually covers that, and just be sure to just keep that in mind. So the first thing worth noting is actually a question that was in the Q&A section, which basically was asking if there are any planned reworks for any existing Warframes. To which the answer to that is basically no, for the time being, as they mainly want to focus on the big update that they have planned, which, don't worry, we'll be getting to that, but it is something I did want to point out. The second bit of news we actually got is actually related to Nightwave. Now, currently we've actually been in Intermission 3 for quite some time now, but we actually now have confirmation of when it's going to end. Intermission 3 will actually end July 28th, so if you still haven't fully got some of those things that are actually within that, now is the time to actually do that, but you still have plenty of time. Now, as for what's going to happen after, as they said that they actually want to continue focusing on to what's actually going to be happening in the future, they decided they're going to do a variant known as Nora's Choice. This will pretty much be similar to Intermission, except this will actually still have some new items for us to actually get, as well as some old ones. But there is still going to be duplicate protection. So if you feel like you're going to get a duplicate of something, don't worry. That will be exchanged for cred if you already have those in your inventory. But if you don't have them, hey, that might be a good chance to actually get them. Now we begin to actually get some of the real meat that was actually shown at this year's Tennocon, which a lot of this was actually shown at the art panel. Now, with the upcoming update that we have, there's been some new enemies that were revealed in concept art and a few other things regarding it. So the first one we're going to be looking at is this enemy right here. I gotta say, I don't know what to honestly think about this one. It's like a priest thing with this weird head and mouth that looks like it just would whir into something and just extract something. I don't know, honestly, I definitely like it. It looks really awesome, but it's just the fact that it looks freaky is what makes it so cool. Obviously, we have to wait and see until then to see what actually this does. Now, the second thing is actually this work of Ballas. Now, for those of you who are already caught up with the story and everything like that, you already know that Ballas is pretty much a chimera of orchid and sentient things. So, what this is supposed to represent here is a form of Ballas that essentially, he kind of accepted where he is now. And so he kind of took on a bit of this new form to kind of get him back up the snuff, so to speak. As you can probably see, he has a prosthetic leg to kind of offset the Vicious style one that's actually there on his left, technically. And you might have also noticed that with the priest thing and Ballas here, that they have this kind of looking, what looks like a bow kind of weapon. This is actually going to be a weapon we'll be able to obtain once we actually complete the new quest. Now, I don't remember if it was actually said what kind of weapon this is, so people in the comments, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that, and I've seen some people speculate in the chat when this was going on, that this could be a spear gun. I'm not entirely certain, but we just have to kind of wait and see what that one is. So next is another new enemy, which honestly just takes the cake for me entirely, because just look at this thing. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a sentient crossed with a snake, and you're probably wondering what that body is. That's actually a discarded Warframe, a Prime Warframe. Yes, that's actually a Warframe that's actually fused to that thing. Technically, these are supposed to be similar to, I guess, the Volmites that you find in the Plains of Eidolon, but it's a different take on that. And they actually have the ability to take over these things. And actually, funny enough, those things in the background that look like the Volmites, that's actually the ammo clips for that arm thing, which, yes, that is actually a gun that can fire off those things. Essentially, from what we understand from this, is that Era apparently plans on fusing some of these things, which we kind of have already seen if we've seen it with the Wolf of Saturn 6 during Nightwave Series 1, and we saw that with the Amalgams on Jupiter with Alad V, who pretty much essentially made that against his will. Now, the next bit of concept art we got, which is actually one that was pretty anticipated, is actually this new Warframe, known as Caliban. Now, essentially, the concept behind Caliban here is that he is actually part sentient, similar to Revenant. But unlike Revenant, who was actually based on the Eidolons, Revenant is actually more so based off the traditional sentience in the fact that he's able to actually adapt to any damage that he takes, not only for himself, but also for his squad mates, and that is his passive. We will also be getting that, I guess it's a scythe, I think, at least that's what people are saying, that it could be a scythe or some kind of polearm weapon, which I imagine that thing is going to be pretty awesome. Now, speaking of weapons, actually, I was going to save this for the next one, but I'm just going to get to it right away, is this sentient bow. This thing just looks awesome. And supposedly, it can switch between a long bow and a short bow. Now, for those of you who may not know like what exactly that means, basically a long bow is pretty much like the one on the far right, where it has the really huge, like the bigger string, and is able to do a lot of damage that takes a while to actually draw back. While a short bow is the one in the middle, where it's just like what you expect from a normal hunter's bow, where it's able to be drawn back quickly and not be able to do a whole lot, but it's actually able to be rapidly done. Now, for a bit of cosmetics, we actually have this evolving sentient armor. Now, the gimmick behind this particular armor set is this is what we'll be getting throughout the quest, and supposedly through currently unknown, unspecified means, we'll actually be getting the next set of it as we continue on. And it has been confirmed that all 3 of these particular sets will be in our inventory by the end of it. So most likely we'll be able to mix and match between Stage 1, Stage 2, and Stage 3, which, I gotta say, they look really awesome. Now we actually get into some deluxe skins, or at least upcoming deluxe skins. This first one starting with Volt, which, I gotta say, man, Volt here looks amazing. I mean, I still like the Proto Volt skin, don't get me wrong, I think that's a good looking one, but this one definitely takes it. Like, it really goes into the theme of Volt being this electric elemental. It looks so awesome. I honestly can't wait for this one to actually be released. Now, the second deluxe skin that was shown off is one that people have actually kind of been anticipating for, is this deluxe skin for Protea. I honestly like the look of this one. This actually looks really, really cool. It kind of has like an imperial regal design. Obviously, as you see on the right there, the skin also applies to her gadgets and everything. Like, I honestly like this one, and I think this will actually be pretty good for people that actually like Protea. And last but certainly not least, we have this skin for Baruch, which, looking at this one, like, this one is really weird, but I would say it's weird in a good way. Like, the one detail that I actually didn't catch right off the bat the first time seeing this was actually the pair of arms that's below the primary pair. This also has goat legs and everything like that. Like, I'm not exactly certain how to describe this. It kind of gives like a Jianshi kind of Chinese vampire look, but it also kind of reminds me of Ganesha in some way. Or at least some kind of like Hindu deity. I don't know why, but it just does. Maybe I've just played a bit too much Smite, who knows. But it definitely does kind of remind me of a Hindu kind of thing. Which is not a bad thing. That's actually really good. Now, the next bit of concept art, and actually what's an in-game, or at least it's going to be in-game, the one thing that people have been anticipating for is the next Prime. And that, my friends, is Nidus. As you can see by this concept art, Nidus here, Nidus Prime, looks amazing. With the base form being all this, with the light blue and the white, and the one arm that has the gold, and then we actually get the mutation stacks, it gets covered in this kind of blackish sort of sludge thing that I'm not entirely sure how to describe, but I feel like that part is very much a callback to the original game for Dark Sector for the Technocyte virus. I think that's a callback to that, which, if it is, that is fantastic. That's a great callback. Oh, and in case you're wondering, yes, even the maggots are going to get primed, as you can see here. Looking at this, like, the first time, like, I couldn't help but feel that this somehow looked familiar to me, but I'm not entirely certain why. You know, it's one of those things that you look at that you're not entirely certain why it reminds you of something, but it just does. Now, there was actually concept art shown for this, but I actually got the screenshot that was shown in the game for the relays during that. So, you kind of have to excuse me for the guerrilla style kind of cropping here. But this is basically going to be in the New War, which is a classroom that's on the Zeraman 10-0, which many of you that are familiar with the story know that this is the origin point of the Tenno, the operators. Now, just looking at this, tell me this doesn't remind you of the elementary school in Dead Space 2. I've actually said this during the actual live event, and I've had many people agree with me that yes, this very much looks like the schoolroom, or at least the elementary school in Dead Space 2. Which is not a bad thing, but it's pretty awesome, to say the very least. I feel like people are going to have Dead Space 2 flashbacks from this, especially those that have actually played it. And that was practically what was shown in the art panel, which just leaves us to the main event, what was actually shown during the actual Tenno Live panel. And now we get to what was shown in the Tenno Live panel, which there was only really 2 things that were shown, but they were pretty huge. So the first thing that was actually shown is something that players have been wanting for a long time. We are finally going to be able to get crossplay and cross-save. Not only that, but the game is also coming to mobile phones. Yes, you heard that right. Warframe on your phone. Honestly, when it comes to it being on mobile, I'm a bit skeptical about it because I'm not sure how it's going to handle well on some other phones. Like, mine is an LG 4 style plus, I think, and it sometimes actually lags with certain games, so I'm not entirely certain how it would be able to handle Warframe, which I have a feeling it probably won't. But not only that, with all this, all the consoles that you see, including mobile, not only is able to do crossplay, but also cross-save. So as you can see from the first screenshot that I took here, you can see that on mobile, there is actually this teal and black Mesa. But on the next one, you see that on the Xbox One, that same black and teal Mesa is there. That's the part of the cross-save, which again, these are 2 features that people have been asking for years. And this might actually be the one thing that we might be really getting the most. Or at least the one thing that most people are most anticipated for. It's definitely a pretty big thing, but obviously there are still a lot of questions in there, such as like how will the economies work for trading, as all platforms actually have pretty different economies when it comes to the market. Though I'm probably certain they might have some of this figured out. We just kind of have to wait and see, but again, it is worth noting that all this is actually still in development, so we have no due date for when this is actually going to take place. We don't know when we're going to get cross-save, and we don't know when we're going to get cross-play. We just don't know yet, so until then, we just have to wait, as it is still in development. But that's okay. So the next thing, and probably the last thing that was shown, is I'm going to do this one a bit differently. So instead of actually recording this in my audio sort of program, I'm actually going to record this in OBS and actually record the actual thing itself, so you guys can actually see this while I'm actually kind of explaining some of it at the same time. So let's get to that, shall we? Okay, so we're actually here with what was the biggest thing that was revealed, and that is the New War. Something that a good portion of us have been waiting for a good few years now. So we're just going to actually go through this, and I will skip ahead a few times if I feel like it's necessary to kind of just give some context, and we'll try to explain as much as I can while making a few necessary stops. Hopefully I have the audio set well enough, so let's just see what happens, shall we? Here we go.
We are seasons. All of us.
So there's two forms of ballast. So this part here, I do believe, is going to be what we're going to see when we start up the quest. So I'm just actually just going to skip ahead a bit and just get to a point that is probably worth noting. Okay, so as we can see here, like the village of Cetus, with a few Ostron children, and everything is about to go wrong, as we can see here. Yep, there's the Murex, which we first seen with the Railjack expansion with the Sentients, completely destroying the Unum Tower. And there's Era, who is most likely in charge of this whole thing. I gotta say though, like, I honestly do love Era's design. So yep, takes off the mask.
Don't be afraid.
I have a feeling that line is gonna be a pretty big meme. I already know, knowing the community, that line is gonna be a huge meme. So, yeah, what happens here exactly? Well, we don't know yet. So now we cut to another side of the Plains of Eidolon with a Condrix. That was first seen, again, in Scarlet Spear. With a tusk, I believe that's a firebolt, I think? Or whatever it's called. And yep, Sentient took that down, and they are going down, down, down. Oh, they got demolished. And the Krokata. But wait, who's this?
Brothers, dead. Only call 175.
Now, I know you're probably watching this point, and you're thinking, why are we so focused on this one Grineer? Wait for it. Wait for it. And yes! We actually get to play as a Grineer, namely Call 175. And as you can see, actually in the corners here, we have a pretty different UI this time around in comparison to what we have normally, which that's actually a good thing, I think, for this particular Grineer. Let me see. Actually, I'm just going to let this play a little bit longer, because I want to show some of the, or at least I wanted to see some of the combat, because this is really something. Like, I gotta say though, like, this style of gameplay very much reminds me, again, pretty much of Dark Sector, which was pretty much the game that Warframe is a spiritual successor of. So we got another one of those, and it just got blown down with the Flying Sentients and some Dargans.
Dargan crash. Call help pilot. Call finish mission.
Also, I noticed a little attention to detail here is, like, for the objective names here, it says, like, here, like, help pilot who crash. It's not like saying, like, help the fallen pilot or anything like that. That's a pretty good attention to detail there, and pretty in line with the Grineer.
For the queens. No. Run, maggots. Run!
And there is another meme-worthy line. I already know for a fact, again, I feel like this whole thing is going to be filled with memes. Like, this whole thing is just a meme fest, but honestly, I don't mind that, because some of the memes from Warframe is actually pretty funny. So now we actually get into some combat with some Sentients. So, able to do that with the Krokata, as expected. Oh, and there's some more Sentients. I believe those are Brocculus. Yep, we're able to actually throw grenades, much like in Dark Sector. Although, again, another throwback to that. Okay, this is where I think it uses the machete. Which, I'm surprised it's the machete. I gotta say, I'm surprised it's the machete and not the sheath, which is typically the one thing that all Grineer units actually use for if they're disarmed. Like, the only ones that actually use the machete is the Grineer Scorpion, which kind of makes me wonder why this particular one actually has this. But, you know, it could just be like a bit of an oversight, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Just a little attention to detail. Still pretty cool as hell, though. Just able to just take down these sentients. So we do get to see that. Got some more sentients on the way here. Just completely mows them down with the Crocata. Which, I know some people might think the Crocata is much of a meme weapon, but trust me, that weapon is anything but a meme. So now we actually see what's happening here with this Dargon pilot. And yep, he's dead.
Pilot is dead. What is mission now?
What exactly is the mission now for these guys? But we get a cutaway. And you might be thinking, what's next? Well, here we go. This is actually a Corpus crewman, believe it or not. And now you're probably thinking, why are we so focused on this one crewman? Why is he so important that we're looking at him? Well, we get to play as him, believe it or not. Yep, Viso. Viso-R. This is essentially the Corpus perspective on what's happening.
Hold fast to your stations, crews. Our glorious victory is close at hand. Oh, and any remaining techs aboard narrow bend me at once.
I just gotta say, like, I'm kind of confused why it's Alid V and not Nathaniel or even Parvos Granum for this point. But I don't have a problem with that because that little bit there was like, he's saying all like this bodacious stuff and just casually like, oh, if there's any like text aboard, you know, hit me up. Like, that is actually pretty funny.
Confirming tech aboard. Viso-R at your service. Most gilded director. Most...
Yes, Tech Prophet. My command overrides aren't working. I need to break fire control from the fleet. Can you fix that, Vico?
It's Viso, most lucrative and sagacious visionary. Yes, I can try. There's a trace conduit nearby. I can bypass
Great.
it.
Yes, do your thing. There's a nice bonus in it, if you can.
So yeah, in this part we actually get to play as a Corpus crewman by the name of Viso-R, who is actually under direction of Alid V. I've kind of also noticed that that particular model used for Alid is actually not the post-Second Dream one. It's actually the pre-Second Dream one, which is basically the one that we face when we actually fight him on Jupiter. So there's a lot of this stuff going on, and that falls, and you think, oh, there's no way to there now. What would somebody do? Well, let's see this little thing here. This thing? Yeah, that's a dispenser for MOAs.
Over there.
It's able to be commanded, and this one can be shot at to explode. For one of its potential features. Now, I gotta say, like, this particular style of gameplay with having these little units that you can control, I do feel like that is actually a mechanic that's been used in other games, but I can't remember which ones.
Viso here. Our robotics have gone rogue. The sentients must have latched the grid.
Someone has. Yes. I'll pull some meat crews to cover you. Just get me that override.
Viso, sir. I could disengage the safeties on the decoys, maybe hypercharge the batteries.
So yeah, we see this little vent here, and we can actually get an Osprey. And once again, you notice that the UI here is actually slightly different from what's actually was shown with Call, which again is a very good attention to the detail. So we actually get to see more of this, and we see that some of these actually went rogue as it was seen. Notice how they have like these little fork things here? That's pretty much to signify that these are actually rogue ones that are being controlled by the sentients. Which is, again, a pretty good attention to detail. And obviously here he's actually armed with the Plinks pistol, which I find, again, a bit of an interesting choice. Instead of maybe giving him a Dara or something like that, but that's what it is. So he's got here another little MOA here, which kind of looks like the test MOAs used for the Jackal. But this one can actually do things like do that. So it's like a little thing that you can use as a moving bomb, essentially, to take out these rogue proxies. Which again is just absolutely, I feel like this part's gonna be pretty fun. And there we have another one. So this actually shows another feature of this particular MOA. It can do more than just blow things up. It can also activate panels that are out of reach, such as this one here. Two things that are worth noting. The fact that the MOA just casually like says this thing like, "Oh, I love puzzles," very much reminds me of the personality cores from Portal, which I wouldn't be surprised if that is actually a reference, but if it is, like, that is actually a pretty cool reference and pretty funny. The second thing is, like, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who hears it, but when it actually activates that panel, it actually does like a little variation of the dial-up tone, which I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but it's, I don't know, I just think it's pretty funny and pretty cool at the same time. So just going down more and just pretty much seeing that everything is just going to hell. Alright now, Allied. Yep, and we got more proxies here. Just shoots them. And a laser barrier, which can only be taken down by that one MOA.
Go!
I have purpose. Yeah, there's that dial-up sound. It's not exactly the same sound for it. It's a little bit pitched down. Oh, those guys just got wrecked. Like, those crewmen just got wrecked. And here we actually have our third and final controllable proxy, which is a different type of MOA with a turret. Or at least one that looks like it has a Dara. And with the help of the Osprey, is able to actually provide it with shields. And with that, is able to actually take out these turrets. Now, I kind of like the little attention to detail here with Viso actually being up against the wall and his head turning around like this. I feel like this is actually like a bit of a nod to other games that have like cover systems, which actually was in the original Dark Sector. So I kind of like that they're kind of bringing this kind of style back in this, or at least for this particular quest, which I think is actually really, really cool. So now we actually have a door, and obviously it needs to be blown up. So we just have to sacrifice a little friend here, and boom.
If I don't stand down fire control soon, we'll all be sucking vacuum. Tico, what's taking so long?
Tico.
Sir? You want to disengage fire control from the fleet? I don't understand.
Look outside. We're all about to be under new management. Now do your part, or I'll find a more forward-thinking replacement.
You gotta love Alad sometimes. Like, I initially hated Alad, but when Nathaniel came out, my opinion drastically changed on who I hated the most. So now he's all proxied up again, and we get to this door, which, if I remember correctly, I think this happens? No, it's a little further down. But yeah, more of the crewmen actually fighting off the rogue ones, and just everything just going down. Like, the Sentients really do not pull any punches with this. Like, they are really going after everybody. They don't care who. Doesn't matter if you're Grenier, Tenno, Corpus. They're going after everybody in this. Oh, easy there, Viso. You nearly got yourself killed. So now we actually have an Osprey and two Bursas.
How may I help? Preparing for extremes. stress test.
We are doomed.
We are doomed. Oh boy, I just love that.
Ready.
So that was that section with Viso. So now you're probably wondering what's next. Well, we cut back here to Call. Which, it does get better with Call. Trust me.
Loaded contracts swats us down like flies. We're grounded.
Call, stop. Tell Call.
Impossible. Even if you could get close to
Up,
that
Hendrix.
thing, they'd eat you alive.
Eat? Alive? What if food is bomb?
Not a bad idea.
Brother Carl. Yes. Find something with a high enough yield. Hurry.
Okay, so obviously now we have to find a bomb. So obviously you have to fight through some more sentients. And yes, we can actually use the machete like a regular melee weapon. Because why wouldn't we? Oh, look at that. There's a rampart. And you're probably asking, are we able to actually use that? And the answer is yes. We're able to use the rampart and just completely mow down these sentients. Just so amazing. God, that's gotta feel so satisfying once this comes out. And there's a little ammo drops which are found in the plains of Eidolon, which, yes, you're able to actually use here. So a little further up, and we can see that's getting close to the mining camp. But once again, everything is just going to hell. Just completely going to hell. In the worst possible way. And down one sentient. As we continue further on. No, I believe it's around... Oh, forgot about that part. The Chondrix actually fights back. By using its lasers. Yeah, that was a close one. Now here's where things actually start to get interesting. We see what looks to be a new form of sentient. It has these searchlights on them. And it looks like that they're able to actually deploy other sentient units, such as these battalists here. So now there is stealth. Basically, we interrupt the new war to give you Metal Gear Solid.
Not see Call.
Basically, just don't get seen by that. Which, what happens if you do? Well, if we manage to fail that somehow, we'll just have to wait and see. And stealth take down that sentient. Just watch out for that one. And go.
Call sneak good.
I love that. I feel like that's another line that's going to be made into a huge meme. Like, that's definitely going to be a meme. So, we actually have the bomb here.
For the queens.
At least to me, it doesn't look like much of a bomb, but it is of Grenier design, so maybe it is for them. Also, I realized that Chondrix is huge. And we're hearing this, like, what's all that noise? It's some troops with a thumper. Which tries to hop up, only to get just completely demolished. And Call comes tumbling down. Is he dead? We'll find out. But now we have what looks to be the inside of a sentient ship. With an incoming sentient unit, which I believe is the Aerolist, if I'm not mistaken. Which I never seen this one up close, but the fact that it looks like this is just... Man, just look at its head! Oh, something's going on? What could that be? Playing as sentient? Nope! Playing as Teshin. That's right, Teshin is back. Last time we saw him was actually the War Within, actually. And now he's here participating in the new war. And yes, we get to play as Teshin. We're playing as Teshin.
Orphic's fields will be scattered.
The Orphic's fields will be scattered deep in the ship. Orders can help you triangulate them.
Quiet!
I'm only trying to...
I don't need your help. Switch off.
So yeah, in this we get to play as Teshin in this part, and once again, the UI is actually slightly different for this in comparison to both Call and Viso. So again, another pretty interesting attention to detail, which is actually really nice. So how does Teshin play? Like you would expect, using his twin Tennocons, which is something that many players have been wanting for years, among many things, and it's able to switch elements. That's right. Switch between electricity, cold, and heat. And just use that to completely demolish enemies.
Please excuse Orders.
Orders. Now, I believe this is where another feature with Teshin comes into play. Yes, he's able to use the switch to send out his Orifice Blade and use it to grapple along with it, to teleport. That is going to be amazing, like... Completely demolishes a sentient. I think it does it here again, if I'm not mistaken, after he kills this one sentient. We are able to use it like a normal weapon. But this right here, if we were able to actually do this in the actual game, outside the new war, this is going to be the most fun way to actually get around. And I kind of hope they do put this in, but I kind of doubt it. But it would be really nice to have.
Observation. A power field requires a power source.
Ordis, don't ever change. Yep, so now it's using the heat. I'm not entirely certain what the color means for some of these sentients. Oh, what are all those? We'll be able to get a closer look at a later point. Ah, there it is. Okay, so I think, like, what I was trying to wonder was, what the power, or at least the color for the sentients that you're fighting against, if they mean anything for the different elements. And so far it doesn't look like it, but I feel like that might come into play. But that's just speculation at most. Now just able to go up here and just completely demolish that. And there we go. And with that, able to move on. Got that. I feel like Teshin is going to be the one that people are going to have the most fun playing as throughout this entire new war. Just demolish.
Grenier. Oh my. Ordis wonders what we are getting into.
So yeah, captured Grenier, as you can clearly see. This might be related to what Era is trying to do with creating amalgams. So much like we saw originally again with Alid V and the amalgams on Jupiter, it seems like Era is trying to branch out to the other syndicates, or at least the other factions. So first starting with Corpus, and now doing this with Grenier. And even with the ruined warframes we saw with the particular enemy that we saw earlier. A lot of speculation, obviously, but it is something that's really interesting to really think over. And then there's this thing.
You shouldn't have come here. You have ruined us both.
Ah, that's a callback to The War Within.
Teshin, are you
Losing it.
feeling unwell?
Oh, Ordis. Just losing it, like, what the hell? And more sentience, which I believe this is maybe some kind of spawner, I don't know. Yeah, that glaive ability is going to be really helpful.
Ordis.
Yes. Would you like me to deface that for you?
The way that Ordis just said yes, like, that sounded so sassy, like, jeez, buddy.
Swing away, Teshin.
So obviously this thing, which looks like maybe some kind of core or some kind.
The devil sends their relic to do the deed. But then, we're both relics, aren't we, old man?
And Ballast. And holy mother, what is that thing? That is a new sentient unit. Okay, so it seemed like my assumption was correct. If they have like a certain color aura around them, that's basically the element I use. So for this kind of like teal blue color, you want to use cold. For the more purple, you want electric, and I believe if it's like an orange, then you use heat. Which, that's going to be a pretty interesting mechanic. So obviously now it's only vulnerable to electricity. And now it's vulnerable with fire. And just completely demolish it.
Too easy.
And you might think, is that it? Nope, we got one more thing, and that's with Call. So, yes, he is alive! And he decides to discard that part of the mask, and yep, his face is scarred and he's missing his eye. Oh god! Look at that! Sentient doing to those Grenier. So obviously he panics, and we don't know why there's a rhino there, maybe a fallen one, we don't know. But it gets completely demolished, and you're probably wondering, what's he holding? What could he possibly have used right then and there? Well, as we can see right here now, it's a Corinth Prime. Suddenly, this turned into Doom.
For the Queens.
So now, Call is using a Corinth Prime.
You are so close. Detonate Neona, and your brothers shall live to fight another day.
Yeah, now he's just completely demolishing the sentients with the Corinth Prime.
That's it. Detonate at the base of that bloated contracts for glory.
There's another meme-worthy line. Oh boy! Okay, so this one right here, I believe this might be another new sentient, although I could be wrong. But it kind of does look new to me, but I could be wrong, and it might be a pre-existing sentient that we've already fought against. And just finish it off by just blasting it in the face. Call, you are a badass.
I salute you once at a time. For the queens!
Yep, finally now at the base of the Chondrix. And we get this. Man, he in some ways he does very much look like Doom Guy.
For my brothers.
No, we expect it to go boom, but it doesn't. And just look who it is. Era once again.
Don't be afraid.
Yep. It ends there with the new war. Now there is just a little bit more to this, so I'm just gonna try and let it go so it doesn't, I don't skip ahead too far. There is one more thing. Yep, we go to here and we're just seeing.
I know you.
Now, there are actually a few things that kind of go by quickly, so I'm just going to posit these particular points. So, first off is this location with what looks like a statue of Ballas, or maybe some other kind of Orokin. Obviously somewhere we've never seen before, but it could be another Orokin structure of some kind. But we personally just have to kind of wait and see. And this one right here. Many people are saying that this is actually Fortuna, or perhaps this is probably a flashback to Deck 12. Either way, it is possible that there could be an invasion on Fortuna as well as the plains of Eidolon.
It's time. Summon your devil.
And as you can see right here, the new war arriving 2021. That means that we are actually going to be getting it later this year. Now, obviously, there's no actual due date. We just know it's this year. So, depending on how far along, and this is just my speculated guess, so don't take my word for gossip, or for gospel, I think it's going to be coming out either somewhere between October and December. Although, I'm kind of thinking towards early to mid-December, I feel like, is when we're going to be getting the new war. But still, like, this was something that all of us were not expecting at all. And I feel like that this is something that a lot of us have been waiting for quite some time now. And they finally delivered. So that kind of covers this portion. I'm going to go back to the actual video portion of this now. And just like that pretty much concludes everything that was shown at this year's Tennocon. Now, there was one thing that people were actually kind of upset about that they didn't show that they said they would. And that was actually for basically the deluxe skin for Revenant, which they did say that they would show, but they didn't, so most likely they're going to show that in the next dev stream, which should be resuming by August 4th. So overall with this year's Tennocon, I thought it was actually pretty good. Though I will say though, like, this Tennocon proved to be probably their biggest one yet, because they actually had relays that were specific for Tennocon. They actually broke record highs for the most players that were ever on Warframe. So much so that the relays for the actual, or at least the servers for the relays, actually crashed and were pretty much getting murdered by just about everybody that was getting on. Like, they were impressed with the amount of people that were there, but they just didn't expect it to be that much. So, kind of goes without having foresight to have these kind of things. Like, probably best to know that there's probably going to be a huge amount of people that might be attending these kind of things, but either way though, like, if anything, I just feel like this particular this particular Tennocon really showed that, yeah, this was something that many of us have been waiting for years. And personally, I feel like this is a bit of a start to Digital Extremes actually kind of listening to us a bit more and seeing what we actually want in the game. Now, obviously, that's to say one particular important thing. Yes, you can be hyped about this. I'm hyped about this. I'm actually excited for the new war. However, it is worth noting that we shouldn't exactly have the highest expectations in our minds. It should be safely assumed that, it is a possibility that this could not be in the way that we planned to, or at least we expect it to be. It could actually be an ultimate failure. We don't know that. Now, with that said though, I do want it to succeed. I want this to be good. As again, I do feel like this is something that the game has been needing for at least a good few years. And I feel like this is the one thing that might actually bring a lot of players back to Warframe, if they go in this direction. I feel like this is something that is actually going to revitalize it. But, again, we don't know how this is actually going to be, so you can get excited for it, just don't have your expectations way too high, is all I'm saying. But, overall, this Tennocon was really, really good, and I very much enjoyed it. And I feel like most of the community actually enjoyed it. Even some that have been away from the series, or not the series, but from the game for a while, and are now seeing this, even they are starting to kind of get their interest back, which I feel like is actually a good sign that we might get players to actually come back to Warframe. So, with all of this has been my coverage, or at least my overview of this year's Tennocon. So, I want to thank everybody that has stuck around for this long, has actually watched this all with me and everything like that. So, what were some of your favorite things that you saw from this year's Tennocon? I want to hear some of your feedback in the comments below, or join the Discord server and we might get a conversation going about that. But with all that said and done, I thank you all for watching this, and until next time, stay true, Tenno.